Count it down, Richard. I'm ready, man.
Okay, right, ready? Focused. 1, 2, 3, clap. Doesn't get much better than that.
There
I don't
we go.
think, Brent.
I think we peaked. Like, I don't know if we need to talk about anything else.
I think we can just say goodbye.
Yeah. Night, folks.
That was it. That's as much as you're getting. Welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for today, or tomorrow, or Wednesday, or Saturday, or whenever you listen, because after all, it's your podcast. Now, we have spoken to a lot of Kickstarter designers in the past. We've also had people who are just game designers and putting their product out there. We have recently spoken to fulfillment companies and we speak to a lot of content creators. But what happens once the Kickstarter dust is settled, once the funding goal has been achieved, once the targets have been hit, and then that money's sitting there, and then somebody's actually got to get these games together and ready. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to talk to somebody from the actual manufacturing side of, the industry. So I'm kind of very excited to actually have Brent Kinney. And Brent Kinney is the Vice President of Business Development for Panda Game Manufacturing. And if the name Panda Game or Panda GM sounds familiar, they've done a couple of small games, Scythe, Viticulture, kind of games like that. So, hey Brent, how you doing?
Hey Richard, doing real well. Thanks for having me.
No, it's as I say, it's about time we got some people on that actually do the hard work, putting the games together, so they could, so we could have a chat and we could find out a little bit more. For people who haven't listened to us for the first time, thank you for joining us. The reason that we do this is there's quite simply not enough podcasts out there about board games. And there's certainly only a couple of us in Scotland. There's ourselves, there's Unlucky Frog Gaming, there's also Brainwaves who are out and about as well. And as I say, the second reason that we're doing this is because it's about time we let the manufacturers of the pressed and printed trees have their voice on this show. So, Brent, do you want, before we jump into your career and obviously talk about Panda itself, do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of your history with the hobby yourself, how you got involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I've really been a gamer my entire life. When I was younger, one of my earliest memories was playing Yahtzee with my grandmother.
Oh yeah.
When she would come to visit. So we'd roll the dice and try to add up the numbers and get the highest score. And you get really really excited if you get the 5 of a kind Yahtzee. I think it's mandatory that you jump up and spin around and yell Yahtzee. At least it was in our house. So that was kind of the first game that I remember playing as a younger kid, and as I grew up, we'd always play games with everybody in the neighborhood or make up games of our own outside, and we're playing. And it wasn't until after college that a friend of mine introduced me to Settlers of Catan. Or Catan. I don't know how to pronounce it these days.
I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's just a gate. I wonder if they've actually... apparently they've now got a real major problem flying in copies of Settlers of Catan. It's become a bit of a widespread kind of issue with them actually dealing on street corners now to people just out of college. So
that was kind of how I got introduced to that. A friend of mine said, "Hey, let's play this game," and I thought, "Okay, we're on an island. We're making houses. This doesn't look that exciting to me." And then I played it, and it blew my mind. Right? It was everybody was involved, and no one got eliminated, and you had strategy and you had negotiation, which I love with the trading of the resources, and so that kind of revitalized my love of games at a later age. And I happened to be living in Indianapolis, Indiana at the time, and Gen Con is in Indianapolis, so I went to Gen Con that year, and just the floodgates opened. I mean, you hit that exhibition hall floor, and there's Catan, and then there's all sorts of other games from any theme, any type of mechanics, any type of complexity that you're looking for. And I was really bit hard by the bug. That's where you get in and your collection starts growing like crazy, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, and experiencing all these new games. And then, the following Gen Con, I was working for Panda. So,
wow.
So it was kind of the love of games have always been there.
Yeah.
But then it came back to me a little bit later in life, and it has turned into a really enjoyable, fulfilling career.
Did you kind of swear to yourself? Was it kind of like a movie thing where you kind of walked out with your car now full of games and went, next year, I'm going to be working for the industry? And then kind of music played and that was it. And then you kind of went out and got a job.
I wish it was as cinematic and clear as you laid it out there. I think it was a more gradual type thing. I started getting into the hobby, playing those games. I had that big haul that I came back from Gen Con, and I wanted to be a media creator, like you at first. I was writing blog posts and I was writing reviews on Board Game Geek, and that was the way that I wanted to be involved with the industry.
Did you have
a
special name then? I
didn't.
What did you call yourself?
Brent Kinney. I figured that was a name my mom gave me. I should probably stick with it.
So you didn't call yourself like I don't know, the first time Meeple or
I wasn't like the Flying Meeple Brothers or
Diced Out,
all the Happy Meeples or whatever it may be. I think when I had my board, it was Brent's Board Blog, because alliteration is awesome, right?
That's key,
yeah. So it became very clear to me early on that maybe I didn't quite have the creativity to cut it as a content creator, as a media creator.
Yeah.
Being that I was on Board Game Geek quite a bit, one day I saw that Panda Games Manufacturing had posted a job listing for an account manager position. And I'd been familiar with Panda from some Kickstarter games that I'd backed in the past, and I looked at that job listing and I went down the list. I said, "Oh, I can do that. I can do that. I do that in my job right now. I think I'd be a good fit. I'm going to apply for this."
Yeah.
And after a long interview process, they brought me on, and 5 years later, here we are.
Do you still have some of the games that you picked up in Gen Con? I mean, do you still have the copy of Catan, or was it a huge haul that you picked up that year?
So, actually, I was so overwhelmed in that first year. So I misspoke a little. I said I left with a big haul. I actually didn't buy anything that first year. I was just so overwhelmed that everything was there that that I didn't know what to choose, right? And being the gamer, it's like, well, I should probably do my research, do some reviews on look at some reviews on this and see what I want. Yeah. So I had nothing that came out of that. But then, the Amazon cart shortly thereafter was pretty full up. I remember the main game that we played there that we really enjoyed was Smash Up. They just debuted Smash Up for AEG, and I mean now there's like 18 different expansions for Smash Up, but that was the first year it came out.
Yeah.
And that was the one I wanted bad, but we went on Sunday and it was already sold out. So that was the first one I picked up when it became available in stores. That was the one that stuck with me on that first one.
And they're doing a big box one of that now, isn't there? I've seen like they're doing like a Gloomhaven sized kind of box kind of thing. That
you got to have a suitcase for all the expansions on that.
Yeah, you can lose a small, a small animal in the box nowadays. But so I mean, you started the content creating. You went to you started at Panda. I mean, what kind of attracted you there in the first place? I mean, was the content creation kind of like, well, I can stick with this and see where I can go, or did you instantly see, well, actually, I can do this, but I can do this from a kind of a job kind of perspective?
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, it feels like a lot of happenstance, or some people would say fate. I would say fate. Things came together the way that they did. I initially looked at being a content creator, a blogger, because I had a background in journalism and an interest in writing and creating in that way. But then, as time went on, the opportunity showed itself, and I was looking to change careers at that time. I was in finance before. Okay. So it just all kind of came together in a great way that it's hard for me to put words on it, really.
I mean, are you getting time at the moment to kind of play any games just now? I take it, are you encouraged to kind of play games to find out kind of what else is out there? And I mean, is there anything you're kind of enjoying at the moment that you're getting to the table?
Yeah, so what I'm playing right now that I'm really enjoying is Charterstone from Stonemaier Games.
Yeah.
And so that has the legacy elements where you're playing through it and unlocking different things. And I don't think I can say much more. We drift into spoiler territory. But I'm playing through a campaign of that with my wife, just her and I. And it actually plays very, very well with two players. And it's quick. We can get a game in 45 minutes to an hour. And just unlocking all the new stuff is really a great hook in that one. So that one I'm enjoying quite a bit right now. Also, myself and a lot of the people on the Panda team, over the last few conventions we've been able to get together. Mm-hmm. We've been playing Star Wars Destiny. We've caught the bug a little bit for that one. So that's a system that I'm really, really enjoying and getting into right now. But there's never enough time to play all the games I want to. I guess that's one of the drawbacks of working and making games. You're making so many games, you're not playing as many as you'd like to. Especially, we talk about going to Gen Con. That first Gen Con I went to was awesome because I got to try out all the games, and now when I go to Gen Con, it's all business, right? If I get one game to the table, or two games, it's a banner Gen Con because we're just in and out of meetings and seeing clients and checking out all the new stuff that's going on. So I'm sure a lot of gamers can identify with that there's too many games and not enough time. So I'm still trying to figure out a way to add a few hours to the day so I can have game time every day.
Yeah. I mean, being involved in what you're involved in, when you're looking at a game, say like Charterstone or just any game, like Destiny, do you actually look at that from a kind of almost like a work business type of view and says, I would have done slightly thicker cards there, or I like the weight of these dice, or does it give you ideas? Do you sometimes have to kind of like separate the work Brent from the gamer Brent just to make sure you're enjoying a game and not kind of taking it apart a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that the first 5 minutes that I open up a game and get it set up, I'm work Brent. I'm looking at the materials. I'm looking at how the art was done. I'm looking at what components were used and why. And then as soon as the rules are read and we're in the game, I'm playing the game and I'm just in it for fun and doing it. But yeah, my lens of viewing games now is, that first impression, the first time that we're going through it, I'm like, okay, what'd they do here? Oh, this was an interesting choice for the component. Oh, I like that. That might be something that we can recommend to clients that are doing something similar to this. So yeah, it's really a neat thing that I can dovetail, do a little professional research while I'm enjoying myself and playing a game and enjoying company of friends.
Yeah, well, that's cool. That's cool. No, is there any ones that have any games recently that have really kind of stood out for you from the component side of things? I mean, there seems to be, we're in a golden age at the moment. There seems to be just as you said yourself, there's so many games out there, and there's not necessarily an awful lot of time out there. But have you seen anything recently that you've, your little ears have pricked up and went, man, I've got to get myself a little physical copy of this just to have a kind of a look through it and see what they're doing with it?
That's the thing, is we have such a just a wealth of spoils right now as far as component quality goes in games, and I would say that it's less often that I open a game and say, oh, this is not very impressive, or oh, this could have been done better, or
yeah,
this is not quite up to snuff, rather than just being extremely blown away by a single title or a single component like that. It's usually, the bar's been raised across the board and in the industry that we're in. That, everybody has stepped their game up and knows that those appearances matter, in some ways that you gotta have a certain amount of polish and flash to that game, or it's going to be lost in the masses of games that come out. I mean, what was the release number for Essen last year? 800, 900 new titles.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, I'll say there's sticker cards in Charterstone that I'm just in love with. I'm racking my brain to think of other games, how they could use that and utilize that. That's something that's really, really cool and neat. A lot of games that I'm playing lately have metal coins, and that's just the tactile nature of clanking around coins and trading and stuff. It makes it feel more real, So I think those are my favorite things that I've been seeing lately is metal coins and sticker cards.
Well, but in fairness, I mean, I took in Dinosaur Island recently, and that box had lots of metal coins, and I am now ripped from lifting up multiple times.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Nate and Molly over at Pandasaurus, they pack those games to the brim with cool stuff. They're always doing really cool things. So yeah, Dinosaur Island is an awesome one, and like you said, you get an extra bonus of getting a few bicep curls and just taking it off the shelf and putting it back on there.
Exactly. That's it. You can't get somebody coming up, get somebody coming up to you because you just sit inside playing board games. I was like, yeah, but have you seen my tickets to the gun show?
Yeah, I recently had to rearrange my game room so that all the heavy games were on the lower shelves, because it was getting to be a little bit of a strain to reach up and bring those down.
I mean, how many games have you got, would you say?
I would say it's in the 250, 300 range.
So just, bit of a middle of the road then.
Decent. I mean, I tell my friends that aren't, into games about that, and they're just floored. They're like, how is there that many games? And then I talk with people at conventions, and they're like, oh, that's cute. I have 1,200, So well, I think nice. that's a number that I like to I think I want to keep it around. Like beyond that might be too much to handle. I'm just running out of wall space, honestly. So that's the limiting factor.
One of the things about manufacturing, one of the things, first of all, is games seem to be going up in price. Is it getting more expensive to produce a game, do you think? Or because of the tied in with the components, just the cost of resources themselves? I mean, from your point of view, from you being in this business for the length of time that you have been in, have you seen a kind of an increase in a base cost of a game kind of increase, because of world economies and stuff like that? Has it kind of risen over the last couple of years as far as you can see?
Yes and no. I mean, I think in general you have currency fluctuations, you have material fluctuations over time that can influence how much a game costs. And a long time ago there was Hero Quest, right? And they did Hero Quest, and it was awesome, and then it went away because plastic got so expensive and it was so plastic intensive. So you see things that ebb and flow like that. Yeah. I think the biggest thing as far as prices increasing in board games is just what we were talking about earlier with all the new components and all the cool stuff. Like, there's so much more in a board game box now than there was in the past. And older games, it might be a few dice and a board and cards and that's it. And now we've got, metal coins and plastic miniatures and 3D constructible cardboard items and tiles and all sorts of bits in the box. And with more stuff in the box, the price increases along with it. So I think, along with what we were talking about of the appearances matter, and everybody wants to step their game up and do something cool and unique and different, and to do that, sometimes it costs a little bit more to put that pizzazz inside that box. Okay.
Has your, with the number, with Kickstarter, obviously when you started, Kickstarter probably wasn't as big as a thing as it is now. Are you finding that you're getting a lot more people kind of chapping on the door with regards to asking and requesting kind of manufacturing quotes and stuff like that? Because there seems to be, at any one time, there seems to be a good couple of 300 or 400 projects on the go on kind of like Kickstarter. Have you found that, with Kickstarter becoming so more and more popular, are you finding it more easier to kind of get people coming in requesting quotes, or are you still having to go out and fight the sales fight kind of every day?
We've been very fortunate in that regard, in that we do have a lot of business that comes to us, that comes to our door, so to speak. We have a quote form that's set up on our website. And if someone wants to get a quote for the game that they're designing, they'll just go on our website, sign up, and provide some just basic information to have an account on the website, and they have access to our quote form. That's a series of drop-down boxes that let you choose what's in the game. So you can choose the size of your box, you can choose the cards, all the bits that would be inside of that game. And then they submit the form to us, and it goes to our sales team, and then they'll reach out and work with that designer to quote their game. Okay. So we've always had that quote form in one shape or form as part of the business. Yeah. When I started years ago, we actually just had it was an email inbox that people would email. Right, okay. And there was no semblance of order, right? Some people would send really great specs in an Excel spreadsheet, and others would just say, "Hey, how much does it cost for me to make Monopoly?" And do you still get that? Do you still get we still do get a little bit of that.
I'll tell you what it is, yeah. It's like Monopoly, but it's got fish.
Tell me more.
Fish.
More. I'm interested.
Different streets, except the board is circular, so it's like a fishbowl. You bound to get that. You're bound to. There must be a collection of the kind of the Panda Games Manufacturing kind of best requests for quotes, and there must be some people that. What did I see recently? Did you see the thing on Kickstarter about the guy that was wanting to make Harry Potter Monopoly?
No, I didn't see that. I'm guessing he probably didn't have the license though.
he was using the. He kind of said he was kind of using the kind of the whole. It's kind of based around, inspired by kind of thing, and folk were kind, mate, it's Monopoly. Well, it's not. It's inspired by Monopoly. He's like, no, that's definitely Monopoly. You've still got the two card spaces in the middle, and then that's Harry Potter. He says, no, it's inspired by Harry Potter. It's like,
it's a different boy wizard. Yeah, sure.
you've taken stills from the film.
No, I didn't see that.
I think he managed about 2 days before it was like, unfortunately, the funding got cancelled. But bless him for saying, I'm going to take two of the largest IPs known to man and try and make my own game and try and fudge kind of getting through. But
so yeah, the quote form, we get a lot of incoming business from that, and that's kind of the main pipeline, the main way that people reach out to us initially, and then we work through that, and if they hop on and we make a game for them, then they're paired with an account manager that they work with and handles their business, and they're part of the Panda family moving forward. So
okay, do you have? I mean, if say I've got my game idea, okay.
Yep.
Do you have like minimum levels and things like that? Because obviously one of the things about Kickstarter is people have kind of like an idea of a minimum level. Do you kind of discuss levels? Does the manufacturing process have to be quite fluid? Because obviously you get games like, say, well, if you take Scythe, which is one of the games that you guys were involved in, do you get an idea of the potential stretch goals for like a Kickstarter campaign when it starts out, or is that something that you kind of discuss as you're going through the kind of the manufacturing kind of process? Is when the Kickstarter creator kind of gets assigned their account manager, do they generally have knowledge of potential stretch goals, or does that depend on the individual client that you're kind of working with?
It depends. It depends on the client, but in general, we always encourage people to have their stretch goals, have their ideas laid out early on. Obviously before you get on Kickstarter is a good time to have those things figured out, and that's what our account managers do to help those project creators and those designers to lay out their stretch goals. Okay. That's kind of the one tie that binds us all at Panda as far as our account managers and our project managers go. Yeah. We've all come from different backgrounds. So I used to be in finance. We have a guy that has a theology background. We have people that came from consulting, graphic design, a museum creator, all sorts of different backgrounds. But the tie that binds us is we're all gamers and we're all passionate about the hobby. So when we work with our clients, we're looking at their projects from a gamer perspective, and what would someone want to see and want to play with when they open that box. So in a perfect world, we have that designer reach out to us, say like, hey, here's the base game that I'm looking at. This is bare bones. If I'm at a minimum funding level, this is what's going to be in the box. And then we talk with them. We say, all right, well, what's your Cadillac version? What's the pie in the sky? And so they'll consult with our account managers. The account managers might give a few tips, a few suggestions as far as what they can do to bling out the game or add more content or whatever it is. And then it'll be a collaborative process where they're working through those things, and they'll have a couple different levels of quotes made out, so they'll know where those funding levels are and help set up where that campaign's gonna go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in terms of stretch goals, is there encouragement to do things like make more cards for the game, as opposed to saying, okay, so you've been talking miniatures, so let's kind of spec out miniatures instead? I mean, I take it there's easy wins that just involve adding an extra couple of cards to a sheet and then some design time, as opposed to kind of like tooling kind of miniatures.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Richard. There's kind of, like you said, the easy win stretch goals where it's, maybe adding a box sleeve as a Kickstarter exclusive, or metallic ink or gold foil to the box. type thing, or add a few cards here, all the way up to, all right, you've got cardboard standees for the game. Let's talk miniatures. Like, what would it take to get over that threshold and do plastic miniatures? So it varies on what type of game that you're making. You know, if you're making just a card game, then your stretch goals are probably going to be additional cards, additional expansions, things like that. Yeah. If it's a worker placement game with meeples and wood, maybe your upgrade is going from plain, you know, Carcassonne type shaped meeples. And you can't see me on the camera, but I'm standing like I'm a meeple here with my arms out.
I'd pay good money for that. No, Brent, show me angry. Show me angry.
I could never be angry at you, Richard.
Oh, thank you.
To a custom shaped meeple that would look like a pirate or a adventurer or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different paths that can be taken, and that's kind of the biggest thing that we focus on, is that, you know, our account managers and project managers are gonna work with them to figure out how to present that game in its best form, and put a really great title on the shelf for that designer.
Is it like an arms race amongst you guys and the other manufacturers kind of out there? I mean, is it a case that you mentioned kind of custom meeples? Now, for the longest time, you would see meeples in different colours or meeples with stickers. But now, in I must say, in a fair number of games that I've seen recently that have come through Kickstarter, they have got the custom shaped kind of meeples. So do you guys have to be aware of kind of like the latest technology that's out there? Do you have kind of things that you're constantly developing that you try with certain clients or make suggestions to see if that's something that's kind of like, you know, popular?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we always want to try to stay in front of the trends and on the cutting edge as far as what things are going in games and what we can offer to our clients. And you know, in regards to that, it's kind of a two-way street. Sometimes we will, you know, be at a convention and see a certain game, or talk with another manufacturer or publisher and see what they're doing and say, oh, well, you know, that's really cool. Let's see if we can do that, or see if we can do something that's a little bit different than that. Or, you know, so sometimes we'll reach out to our production team and say, let's try to make, you know, a plastic miniature that does backflips automatically or something. I just spitballing at this point, something crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then other times it's our publisher clients will come to us and say, hey, I've got this crazy idea for a game. It really centers around this weird component. What can we do? And then, you know, they'll push that innovation too. So we're always trying to move forward and come up with innovative things to put in the box. But also, you know, you've talked to all these brilliant game designers on your podcast, and their brains are going 90 miles an hour, coming up with all sorts of ideas. So, you know, we leverage that, and we work with their ideas too to come up with new stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I've seen is the kind of the game trays kind of setup. That seems to be quite a popular thing. I think people want to play or would like to play big complicated games, but they don't necessarily want to spend kind of the first hour kind of setting everything up kind of thing, or they want to make sure that everything's kind of put away kind of nicely as well. Which I think I've seen a few guys kind of almost offering it as kind of like stretch goals.
Yeah. You were talking about Pandasaurus earlier. They did that with Wasteland Express.
Yes, they
had
did.
the whole nesting trays, and Game Trays did the entire design, and they work with Game Trays to come up with the design and work with us to make sure everything fit, and then, you know, we mass produced all those trays for the games, and it makes that game. I mean, that game's awesome in the first place, but it makes it such a joy to get out of the box, because you just, after you set it up once, you take out the trays and you're ready to rock. So that's definitely a big one right now.
Have you played it yourself?
I have.
I played it for the first time just last week there. I was impressed. I must admit, I did go brrr when I was moving the trucks around. But
Oh, you have to.
I mean, that is in the rule book. I'm pretty sure it's page.
I think it is on the rule book. I'm pretty sure that Matt and Ben, when they did the design, that was one of the stipulations there. So, and Jonathan too on the design. There's the three of them.
But when you're sitting down and you're playing a game that your company's been part of, is that like one of the coolest things? It's like, it's not like you're making, mop buckets for people that are still very, very important, but you can't sit with a mop bucket on your table and play it. But is it quite cool to be kind of playing a game? You're saying, well, actually, we were very much involved in making sure this product got to the table. Is that still kind of like a cool, exciting thing that thrills you at the moment, or still kind of thrills you at the moment? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's still the biggest high, playing a game that you've gotten to help someone make, or going to the store and seeing a game that you've been involved with on the store shelf. It might just be me because I came from a finance background where the things that we were selling were not tangible, right? I can't touch a mutual fund. I can't touch my stock portfolio.
No.
But I can play a board game, and I can go to Target and see all the board games that are set up, and see the ones that we were involved with. So, that is still a really big high, and something that's exciting, and to know kind of the backstory behind those games too. Some of my favorite memories of working with Panda are, when a client will show me just their prototype, their index cards marked up with markers, and sleeved magic cards that are prototyped, and we play the game, and seeing it in that form, and then working with them through the quote, and then working through the production, and seeing the final art, and then getting it all the way to the end. Like, that's one thing that's lost on people that aren't in the hobby, is that there's so many hands and there's so many minds that are involved with making one game that you see on the shelf. You see a game on the shelf for $40, you don't really think much of it, but there's been a designer that's, been designing it for years. And then there's been the publisher who's working on art, and the artist that puts together the art, and manufacturer that gets all the pieces together. And, there's just so many steps that it takes to get there. It's really satisfying to see that final product.
Is there any myths that you want to dispel about the manufacturing process? Because you're the quiet partner in all this. I mean, when I was speaking to Nigel at Games Quest, we had the conversation where you go on to, like, say, the Kickstarter, the Kickstarter page, and then there'll be the comments about what's happening with the game, and then people will comment about kind of like delivery, but you guys are sitting there watching the Kickstarter kind of come to fruition and everything like that, and you don't really have a kind of a voice to say, well, actually, we couldn't do this because it would have meant the box had to be an extra 3 inches high, which meant that no way we would have been able to basically wrap it in cellophane, kind of thing. I mean, do you guys kind of keep an eye, or are you quite involved in the Kickstarter community? I mean, do you guys actively go in and keep an eye on projects, even kind of back projects, to, I guess, kind of keep an eye on how things are progressing through the campaign as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially with games that we're making, right? We'll always keep an eye on the campaign and see what the public temperature is on different things, and what kind of comments and updates are coming out from the publisher, so we can see how the public reaction is to stuff. But our main focus is still staying in that background, right? And just making a great product, and working with that publisher to bring their best vision of that product out. And I don't envy those creators for having to run a Kickstarter. I love the idea of opening up my email and I just see that money is coming in with the pledges during the pledge part. But then doing the updates and dealing with the usually very, very small population that's very vocal and opinionated, can be, I'd imagine would be very, very stressful and a lot to handle. So, we do our best to support the publisher, try to get them the information that they need for their updates and their backers, and stick to a schedule that works for everybody, and just we don't mind being the stage crew. We don't mind being behind the scenes, because that's where we really thrive, and that's where we really can put in good work for our customers.
See the guys that are kind of carrying about the amplifiers and the guitars and stuff like that, and
yeah, I guess we'd be the roadies, if the publishers are the rock stars, and they truly are rock stars, we are the roadies that bring in the equipment and make sure everything sounds good.
Yeah. Is there anything that people assume about the process? As I said, that you're like, no, I wish people actually kind of knew, let's see, like, okay, let's look at timescales, because one of the things that I guess that comes up is, does it really take kind of 8-9 months, potentially a year, to put a game together? Or is this down to how successful a game is? Because I think one of the things I see is you kind of want a game to fund, because if a game just funds, then usually it's like, yep, we're bang on time. If a game goes into stretch goal territory, it can sometimes just expand things out, especially if you're having to kind of tool additional components and stuff like that. So, if somebody was... I guess the reverse on the question is, if somebody was coming to you and was looking at getting something kind of manufactured, what's a kind of a normal, say a normal kind of reasonable sized box game, like say like Scythe, a couple of miniatures, some cardboard, some cards.
I don't know if Scythe is a reasonable type of project. There's a lot going on in that one. But
Brent, have you seen Mechs versus Minions?
I have seen that. Okay, now that one is probably the higher end of the scale. So that's a good point.
And there's also giant killer robots as well.
Yeah,
that's. I think they had to change the size of the box for that game, apparently, because they couldn't put it through the cellophane wrapping machine.
Yeah, the robots were too giant. So I'm glad you bring up timescales, because that would be the biggest thing that I would say.
Yeah.
There's misconceptions or wrong ideas about. I think it's, first and foremost, as humans, we are very bad with time. We are bad at judging how long things can take, comprehending how long things take. Just time's a tough construct in general. And so I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people don't realize how much time it takes to make a game, and that there's a lot of parties involved there, right? So when we make a game, we get files from our client, and we've got to check those files to see if they're set up in the right format that we can print them on our machines.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then we have to kick them back, and they have to make adjustments and go back and forth. And that can be an iterative process. So, like you were saying earlier, does a game take 8 or 9 months, or can it take a few weeks? It depends on, again, are we making Tichu? Are we making a card game, or are we making Mechs versus Minions?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Is that publisher or designer a first-time publisher or designer, where this is the first time that they're going through this, and maybe they don't have their own graphic designer, maybe they don't have their art files in order, or is this a established one where it's not their first rodeo and they've got everything going? So the time scales shift based on that, and based on what is in that box. And the biggest thing that we try to stress with our clients is to talk with us early, so we can sit down, we can see what their expectations are as far as when they want to release that game, what's going to happen with it, and then we can work backwards with our production facility and see, just when, we'll need to have those files updated, we'll need to have those samples approved to keep that timeline. So that's a big consideration in the project management process is what those deadlines are and what we need to hit, and then making sure that everybody, ourselves, the publishers, the graphic designers, the creatives included, are in on that schedule and working towards it actively.
So there's quite a big team allocated to kind of every project, and it's not just a case of here's your project manager, he'll be the guy that will be sending the files. You could get kind of other people involved just to make sure everything's kind of ticking over. Did you say you've got a couple of in-house kind of designers as well, the people that can help with files and correcting stuff?
So we have a pre-press team, and the pre-press team, their main focus is checking those files and making sure that they're able to be printed on our machines and that they're set to our standards. And we have a really great file design guidebook that I'm contractually obligated to talk about anytime that I'm in public from our pre-press manager, Adam. He would get very angry at me if I didn't bring it up, because this makes their job much easier. Is if whoever's working through the files, whoever is the graphic designer for the project, they look at that file design guidebook. It's available on our website too, because it has those words to the whys and those guidelines ahead of time. And if they're using those guidelines ahead of time, there's probably only a few small things that the pre-press team needs to adjust to get those things ready. So our pre-press team won't actively go in and change files, but they go in and check that everything's formatted the right way, and they're in CMYK color and the margins and the bleeds are okay. And they'll run a whole pre-press report looking through all the files and then send it back to the client and say, all right, this looks great, your boards look great, the cards, you're flirting with the margins a little bit, we need to move that out. And then their graphic designer will make those adjustments and resubmit it. So there's a pre-press lead that is helping on each project, along with a project manager who is doing what the title sounds like, right? They're managing that entire project and making sure everybody's on the same page. And then they interface with our production facility over in Shenzhen and our team there to coordinate getting the samples and working up those things and moving it through the process. So it's, even though the project manager is your main point of contact, there's a whole team that's working even further in the background to make those things happen.
So do you send out like production blanks as well? Because I've seen sometimes photographs of that, and somebody says, "Look what it's arrived," and I was like, "Yeah, let's see." And they just put pictures out, and it's just their game, but completely white. It's like, who nicked your ink?
Yeah. So our production process in broad strokes is that the client will submit their design files to us and their files for their samples, whether it's dice or wood, meeples, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And then the pre-press team will check those files, and once those all look good, we'll upload what's called a digital proof. And the digital proof is just their files that they can look at on the computer to check to make sure everything looks good. And then once that digital proof is approved, we will make one copy of the game. Basically a print-on-demand copy, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, okay.
And we call that the PPC, pre-production copy.
Okay.
And so that PPC is basically the white copy that you're talking about.
Yeah.
A few years ago, we would send that blank copy that's all the materials, but it's just white, and then we'd send printed out flat sheets of all the artwork. And then we would send one other white copy with actually just like laser printed paper pasted up on the white copy so you could see where everything lined up. That was the production proof that they would check. Yeah. Now our technology has progressed in a way that we do this PPC copy that everything it just looks like the game. So there's not the white copy and then the flat things. It's just one game that you're looking at and you're improving, and you can see all the art printed directly on it. So that's a big part of the process, and that's kind of the point of no return at the PPC stage. Once everything is approved there and the client looks at it and they say everything looks good, Then we'll make the printing plates. Then we'll order the final components. Then we will, start making all of the games. So at that point, once it's approved, any changes that were to happen after that would be very costly from a time standpoint and from a money standpoint. So that PPC stage is so important. That the project manager gets on a Skype call with the client and they go through the PPC together to make sure everything's in order before we, make 1,500, 3,000, 5,000 copies of that game. And then once that mass production is finished, the first one that comes off the line, we will send to the client, and we call that the mass production copy or the MPC. And that's the really exciting part. I mean, at that point, we've been through all the labor pains. It's time to see the baby. So, they get that MPC and they check it out, and it's another call that they have with their project manager, and it's a spot check at this point, right? Because everything's being made and we're just waiting to assemble it. But we always do a check there just in case there was something that was overlooked by the publisher. Maybe they forgot to put in a rule in the rules book. So, we could print out one card that has that rule and add it to the games. Well, we have all 5,000 in our factory. It'd be a lot easier than if they were to be sent over and then they'd have to deal with it. So it's one last check to make sure those look good. And then we will execute the shipping plan that they give us, whether it's going to a distributor or their garage or wherever they want to have the game sent. We'll help get them sent there. So in very broad strokes, that's kind of the life cycle of a game through the project management process.
Do you then have to take into account like the length of time it'll take for components as well then? Because obviously tooling a set of miniatures is going to take, 3-4 months, whereas preparing kind of like a file for 117 cards or 156 cards is going to take an awful lot less time. So when the project managers are putting together the total delivery time on the project, do they generally have to look at the file that is going to take, or the part of the production that's going to take the longest and kind of factor that in?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the, those items that do take longer, custom dice, plastics, and things like that. Yeah. We always strive to get those samples going and working on those early in the process so we can sync that up with the rest of the things that are printing, because obviously the printing of the printed components take a lot less than making an entire mold for plastic miniatures. Making a mold for plastic miniatures might take a month in and of itself, and that doesn't include the production, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to be talking about those pieces even earlier, and so we can sync those things up for the final deadline. So you're absolutely on the ball on that one.
So when you are doing things like miniatures, is that still the costliest process to go through? They always say when somebody's adding miniatures into a project, that really kind of bumps the kind of the price up. Is that still as costly to kind of produce, or is there been a way, is the cost kind of reduced to that? Would you guys, I take it, say for instance 3D printing just isn't up to the standard yet that you need for decent miniatures, so you still have to do the traditional kind of mold variations at the moment?
Yeah, we have to do molding. 3D printing is an amazing technology. It's just for large quantities, it's too slow and it's too pricey, right? Okay. So yeah, molding is still the way to go, and one of the biggest costs that's involved with the molding is the mold itself. These molds for the plastic figures, depending on how complex they are, could be in the tens of thousands of dollars fixed cost, whether you're making one miniature, you're making 10,000 of them. So that's a big consideration when it comes to plastic. We kind of have a rule of thumb that if someone's looking at doing plastic for their game, custom plastic pieces, that they should probably be looking at a minimum order quantity of at least 3,000 games to make it worthwhile for what they're going to have to pay out for a mold cost.
Okay. And that obviously takes you then into economy of scale, because Jamie Stegmaier was on, he talked about there's a point that you reach where you can't get any more discount for producing. There's a point where, producing 10,000 copies is going to be the same price as producing 12,000 copies because you guys are hitting kind of like the base margin that you need in order to produce the kind of the items.
Yeah, it's not a dead-on linear type scale. It's more of a curve, and you'll get to the point, and Jamie prints quite a few games, so I think he's touched that point a couple times where your economies of scale just don't they don't infinitely keep reducing, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, are there games that you mentioned miniatures needing to have at least 3,000. I mean, are there games that you would say, well, listen, you're going to have... Do you have a kind of an internal thing where you say, right, guys, they've got to reach a minimum of a certain number of orders because otherwise it's going to be too costly to the creator to actually put the game out,
Yeah, that's largely up to the creator, right? It depends how much they want to make on the game. Well, our regular minimum order quantity, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, is 1,500 games.
All right, okay.
And we've set that up just because the way that our production facilities are set up, it makes the most sense making 1,500 games or more. Under that, and it's a lot of effort and a lot of setup for a project that isn't going to be as successful and profitable for both sides, right? For the publisher and for us. Just because of the cost of doing a print run. So we've landed on 1,500 as our minimum order quantity, and then the guideline of 3,000 for plastic miniatures. But again, that's not set in stone. If someone has a plastic miniatures game that they feel really, really confident about, and they funded well, but they only want to make 2,500 games, we can do that because there's, they feel like they'll come back for reprints and then they'll have the molds and it'll be worth their while over the life of that game to do it. So it just depends. I'm sure that board games get marked up quite a bit from where they go from us at the manufacturer to the publisher to the distributor to the retailer to the end customer. There were 4 or 5 jumps right there. So a lot of it is just the publisher doing the math and realizing what they have in the game, what they can charge for it, and if they feel comfortable with that margin. You talked about mechs versus minions earlier, and that's a game that everybody points to and says, wow, the price that they're selling it for, compared to what's in the box, how they're doing it, what's the voodoo magic here. And the big part for them is they've realized that they can sell directly from their merch store, and that's the way they want to do it. And their margin, their multiple is not the same as something that would go through distribution, that would go through retailers. And also, Riot Games is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, video game company in the world. So again, the profit motive there maybe isn't quite as high as someone who's just doing, trying to get a publishing house off the ground. So it's different strokes for different folks. It really depends on what the business plan is there.
And I'm not putting words in your mouth by any way, shape or form, Brent, but do you think that's why the Kickstarter model is kind of so very popular amongst kind of, the argument being that you guys, not you, but there's certain publishers out there that make lots of money on Kickstarter, and then maybe the model is because Kickstarter allows them to go straight from a manufacturing directly to the consumer and potentially miss out the kind of the distribution and the kind of the cost. Do you think that's, is that maybe a reason why Kickstarter is still seeing a lot of big names kind of putting their stuff on Kickstarter because it helps them to miss out potential kind of the distribution and stuff like that?
I think Kickstarter is still very strong and very popular for a variety of reasons. What you had brought up there, that you can sell these directly, and there's a better profit margin for selling those games on the Kickstarter is definitely one of them. But you alluded to maybe companies that they could self-fund, right? They wouldn't need to go on Kickstarter, but having it on Kickstarter they just look at it as a marketing expense, right? Whatever the cut is that goes to Kickstarter, it's marketing because it's a bigger platform. And my core fans are going to be there for that game, but maybe I find some more people that are interested in this because they're tooling around on Kickstarter. Talking about the money factor there too is I can go out on a limb and spend $20,000 of my own money and make a game, and it might do well or it might not, or I can have a safety net and put it on Kickstarter and have somebody else fund it, or a lot of somebody else's fund it, and go from there. So getting that money up front and kind of taking the temperature of how your product is going to be received is another positive and another reason why people use it. So I think it's a lot of those things all swirled together, why Kickstarter is popular. And the board gaming space on Kickstarter, the board game creators have really innovated Kickstarter itself. I believe the idea of a stretch goal came from board game projects. There.
Yeah, I mean, what was interesting, I think, was quite recently a very, very well-known kind of IP went from saying, "Oh, we're going to go from Kickstarter and we're just going to go to a pre-order system instead," and the backlash that they got for not going on Kickstarter was quite surprising. It was it was the Harry Potter miniature game, and they moved from doing kind of like they're saying, right, okay, I think it was 2 weeks before the Kickstarter campaign was going to go live, they went, "Oh, we're just going to do pre-orders to the website instead." And a lot of folk were going, "What's wrong? Why?" And it was asking kind of why questions. And it's almost like being on Kickstarter and having yourself funded through there, even though Kickstarter say, "Listen, if anything goes wrong, it's on your own heads." Right. But that kind of still had a kind of a realm of kind of credibility to it. It's still, Kickstarter still is a beautiful, kind of wonderful kind of behemoth, which is doing really, really well for everybody, alike, and allows, businesses that are doing their card games to come to you with 1,500 minimum order, because they've got 1,500 people that have decided to back the project for you, and that project can then become kind of like a reality as well, which is always kind of cool.
And that's the wonderful thing is, there's so many ways to get a game out for designers or for publishers. The designer can pitch it to a publisher, and then the publisher will run with that and put it out, or go through the regular retail channels, or you can go to Kickstarter and do it on your own. And I think that's really a lot of the allure too, is as far as board game design goes and board gaming goes, the barriers to entry are very low, right? Like I love playing video games, but I can't code. I can't make my own video game. But if I want to make a board game, I can mock up some things on index cards and design a board game. So the barriers are very low for that. And now with Kickstarter, the biggest hurdle is the money to be able to make that. And Kickstarter brought that barrier to entry down quite a bit as well.
Yeah. I mean, in terms, okay, here's a side question. One of the things that I know I joke, it's like pressed and printed trees, but do you have to kind of be environmentally conscious as a manufacturer in terms of the environmental impact that you guys have as well? Is that something that you have to be kind of more aware of? In case anybody kind of asks kind of questions on policies and things like that.
Absolutely. And our printing facilities are in Shenzhen, China, so they're overseas. And recently, over the last couple of years, there have actually been even more environmental regulations that have been raised over in China. So,
Yeah.
We've always been in a position where we're meeting or exceeding those environmental standards and have our certifications that show that, because it's something we want to be conscious of and be responsible with. Just now there was a new regulation passed that for cardstock, certain kind of cardstock.
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I'm asking the question.
it's made from recycled material, from actually from the U.S. and China has come out and said, all right, we've upped this standard, and all that recycled material that the U.S. was sending to China to make for cardstock, it's not of the grade that they want anymore.
Yeah.
So there's got to be changes that are on that, and so it's something that we've always stayed ahead of and always want to be very conscious of, and keeping our certifications up, and making sure that we're impacting the environment is in a small way, as much as we can limit that is what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, well, the same thing happened in the UK, that China turned around and said, all those plastic bottles you were sending us to landfill, we're not doing that anymore. So it kind of ended up with a massive change in. And let's face it, you're at the kind of the mercy of the Chinese government and what they decide to do next, which is always kind of interesting. Brent, have you ever thought about designing a game then?
I've thought about it a lot, but I've never done it. With the number of games I play and the number of games that I'm around, I feel like I should, and I feel like it's always on my New Year's resolution list. But it hasn't come to fruition yet.
What you thinking? I mean, is there a side of you that you have got the big box miniatures game that is kind of like, yeah, it's going to have robots and it's going to have sharks on robots with lasers on it, and there's going to be other big things. We're going to have mechanized bananas stomping about through the city? Or are you just saying, no, I've got a light card game which is about cheese?
I got to write all those things down. The mechanized bananas, I think, that might be the final piece of what I'm looking for here. I'm always.
So you got to spell it with a Z, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Bananas.
Exactly.
We spell everything with Z's in my game.
Here's the rules with a Z.
So
cool.
I'm always, as far as design goes, I'm always really blown away by really simple games simple rule sets that you can really dive into and have, emergent gameplay that come out. The ones where you sit down and you play it and you're like, okay, why didn't I come up with that? So it's it's so simple, like or the small footprint type games, like a lot of Japanese design stuff, like Love Letter. I look at No Thanks and I was like, why didn't I think of that one? I mean, that one's awesome. So I think if I were to come up with a game, it would probably be on the lighter side and something along those lines, where it's a smaller design and simple rules and have everybody jump in and play right away. But there's different ways to win and enjoy yourself with it.
I was just imagining there's like a big waste paper basket to the side of your desk that's just full of crumpled up bits of games ideas.
Pretty much. That and water bottles.
It away going, this is amazing, right? We'll do this. And then if we do that, and what we'll do is we'll call it Apocalyptic Courier Service. And
then I see the email come through.
Email coming from Pandasaurus. And you're just like, God damn it!
So
crunching up paper and throwing it about.
My design process up until this point hasn't gotten past like punny names. Like I think that's probably my favorite part of it is coming up with a name for the game, but then finding the rule set has eluded me. So maybe we'll talk in 2020 and I'll have something a little more concrete at that time.
Why don't you just make a game about game manufacturing?
It's not a bad idea. It's not real sexy though, right? The sexy part's playing the game. I don't know about making.
Right,
We make the donuts.
Easy,
so.
No, you could make it about anything at all. Worker placement.
Mm-hmm.
Do you decide to go for the light card game? You'll need a couple of workers to do that. Do you go for the heavy game? You get longer points in the long run.
I think you got legs on this one, Richard. If you want to print it, I know some people that could help you out.
I just wondered, who could I speak to who could potentially help me manufacture this game? I don't know. Do you know anybody?
I got a few people I can put you in touch with.
Yeah, well, you can hit me up. You can send me an email to, the people that who can maybe get something going. You should do that, though. You should totally do the Panda GM.
It's something we would never really want to publish a game because then we'd be in competition with our clients type thing. There'd be maybe a little bit of conflict of interest there, but we always do.
Imagine that. Pressing control.
I don't think it'd be much competition though.
Sorry, deleted your file.
But we always do a sample kit every year. Where we've got, cardstock samples and some meeples and different bits that we made, and just things to give to designers and publishers to say like, hey, here's a sampling of what we can do. And it's really helpful if they're looking at the quote form and say, okay, what's 310 ivory core cards? Okay, we've got the samples here. So we make a sample kit every year, and we always joke that one of these years we'll have a rule set that goes with it, right? We'll have a game that goes with it. But we've never gotten around to actually making a game that goes along with the sample kit. So maybe on down the line, I could say for this year's sample kit, it's not going to happen. But yeah, it's always something, we have some game designers on our team. So we always bounce around a few ideas.
You send me the sample kit, I'll make you a game.
Well, and that's kind of the inspiration for it, right? We've sponsored game design jams and contests in the past. We'll send those things, and they have the contests entrants have a day or a set amount of time to make a game, and they come up with these game rules based on just the pieces that are in that set. So that's what we want to do, is kind of spark some ideas and spark some game designs.
I have one more question for you. Okay. You are you've gone to the Panda GM headquarters. Okay. You're staring about the archives of the games that they have now. They have managed to amass themselves a massive amount of games. Okay. Of every kind, any editions that you want. Okay. The president of Panda GM comes up to you, or the CEO taps you on the shoulder and says, Brent, you can have any 3 games you want, just because, for being you and for not making your own game and then running away from us. What 3 games would you add to your collection? It can be any games at all. What 3 games would you add? Any 3 games at all. They can be first editions or any games. Any games. So you can obviously keep on brand and stay with the ones that they've made. But what 3 games?
So I would say we did a print run for like a Korean version or an international language version of Modern Art.
Okay.
And I really like Modern Art. That's one of my favorite games. And that was like a limited edition type game. So I would choose that one because it had really great artwork, and it's just I love the bidding mechanics in that one. So that would be number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, I would say Summoner Wars Master Set, just because there's so many different cards in there, a lot of replayability. One of my favorite one-on-one games. So that would be number 2. And then 3. Number 3, I got to go with a recent flavor. Yokohama.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
really digging Yokohama right now, the deluxe version. So because I think the deluxe just happened, you know, that Kickstarter version, and that's it. So that one will be hard to get your hands on. So that would, if I had the supermarket spree right there and I had to pick three, I think those would be the ones that I would grab.
Awesome. Absolutely fantastic. If people want to find you on the internet webs, where can we find you on the internet webs, sir?
Yeah, so our website is PandaGM.com. There you can reach out to us through the quote form. You can also send us an email at sales@pandagm.com if you've got a specific question. We are on Twitter at PandaGM. And we are on Instagram. We're trying to beef up our Instagram game lately. I believe that's at PandaGM too. So you can see a picture of me on a log flume ride with 3 other grown men on that that Instagram page that was posted recently. So if that's what you're into, I would say follow the Instagram page.
Absolutely. And if you want to follow us, and there's no way you're going to get a picture of me on a log flume, I'm just saying. But you can find us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Facebook at We're Not Wizards. We are on Instagram. Guess what? We're Not Wizards. We're on YouTube. Guess what? Search for We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Podknife and Spotify for some reason. No idea why. And all these wonderful places. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts as well. And as we always say, if you have liked what you've listened tonight, I know it's been a slightly different flavour from usual, but change is as good as the rest, as they say. Please consider giving us a subscription because it really helps the show. If you like us even more, then drop us a rating or a review. If you are going to be dropping us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts, don't give us a 10 because it makes us big-headed. But don't give us a 1 because it makes us cry. Give us a 5 because it's in the middle and it's average. And we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight is the rather wonderful, the rather fantastic, the man who can get things made. It is Mr. Brent Kinney. Thank you very, very much for coming on, Brent.
Thanks, Richard. I'm going to need to have you as my hype man. That's some of the nicest things anyone's ever said about me. So I really appreciate you having me on today. It's been a blast.
No, it's been a lot of fun. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak to us. There is only 2 more things to do. And the first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards.
I'm not.
There you go. There's only magic that goes on in that place is taking, resources and turning them into dreams and joy and laughter and skill and such like. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it is a goodbye from Brent Kinney. Say goodbye, Brent.
See y'all.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s. Look, if you've got an idea, if you've got a dream, if you're thinking about getting a game made or designed, then, give Panda a quick check out. We will make sure that all the links that have been given tonight go in the show notes so we have notes to show. But until the next time, goodbye.